Our dog Ghost is stoic. I was talking to Mike and commenting that it might be fun if he had a more quirky personality, but he doesn't. Then I realized my personality is a lot like Ghost. I am more serious and even keeled, and I wholeheartedly value my inner peace. I enjoy reading, being alone, yoga, meditation, and all things self improvement, including attending any and all self care programs. Self care is my jam, and I find joy in peace and calm. So I decided to research being stoic. So I logged onto my public library and searched Stoic. The book I found was The Stoic Challenge, a philosopher's guide to becoming tougher, calmer, and more resilient by William Irvine. The rest of this sermon is going to discuss this book. A constant in Stoic writing is that you can only control your own mind. Everything else, your environment, your job, the people around you, and even your own body, is outside of your control. So concentrate on what you can work with, your own thoughts, perceptions, and attitude. Where there is a conflicting event, Stoics try not to let it ruin their peace, and alternatively, they try to build their character whenever possible. Now I'm going to talk about strategies for Stoic thinking. There are several discussed in the book, and I will go through each briefly. The Stoic test strategy. To employ it, we assume that the setbacks we experience are not simply undeserved misfortunes, but tests of our ingenuity and resilience, administered by Stoic gods. To pass these tests, we must not only come up with effective workarounds to setbacks, but must also avoid the onset of negative emotions. We all suffer setbacks in life. According to Irvine, however, it's not the setback itself that makes it suffer. Instead, it's our emotional reactions to setbacks that increase or decrease our pain. When faced with a setback, treat it as a test of your resilience and resourcefulness created by imaginary Stoic gods. The author discussed imaginary Stoic gods for when you have a setback in life. You imagine these gods administering a test, and it's your job to grade how you do on the exam. Embrace failure because you will fail. You will trip, stumble, and fall. You will stub your toe. You will get yelled at by a crazy person and miss a car payment. You can view these as setbacks, sending you into a tailspin, or look for ways to turn failures into opportunities. The Stoics realized that we have flexibility in how we frame the circumstances we experience. The Stoics' goal was to minimize the number of negative emotions, such feelings as frustration, anger, fear, and sadness. You can develop your ability to stay calm even in the face of very significant setbacks, and this in turn can have a dramatic impact on your quality of life. The Stoics' goal was not to remain calm while suffering a setback, but rather to experience a setback without thereby suffering. Instead of thinking of setbacks merely as unfortunate experiences, you can reframe them as tests of your resilience and ingenuity. An optimal workaround won't necessarily be a pleasant workaround. To be optimal, it needs to be less unpleasant than the other possible workarounds. Along these lines, getting an arm amputated won't be pleasant, but if the arm is severely gangrene, amputation would be preferable to death. When life presents you with a setback, you have many ways to explain it, many different frames. Setbacks are unfortunate events. With the use of framing, you can turn the setbacks you experience into vehicles for self-transformation. The Stoic test frame. When you are confronted by a setback, the Stoics say we should pretend that imaginary Stoic gods are testing us with our well-being in mind. To pass the test and thereby win the game, you must stay calm while finding a workaround for the setback. According to the author, when you are set back, you have 5 seconds to declare the event to be a Stoic test. I used the Stoic test frame the other week when I was taking Ghost to a friend's house in Beaver Creek. We get to the friend's house and I bring Ghost inside and I go back out to the car to get his kennel. I open the trunk and realize the kennel's in the other car at home. So I looked at this as a Stoic test. The imaginary Stoic gods were testing me. In the end, it all worked out and I just took the extra time to drive back home and drive to Beaver Creek in the other car with the kennel. The blame frame. Our subconscious mind tends to assume that it was other people who set us back and that they did so on purpose and even with hatred. It is human tendency to blame setbacks on someone else and then to get angry at that person. For example, if a coworker gets a promotion over you, you might blame your boss. Blaming or complaining is so comforting because it excuses us from taking responsibility for our own thoughts and actions. The comedic frame. Use humor to offset the setback. If you can bring yourself to laugh at the things that make most people cry, you have a powerful weapon to use when you have a setback. The incompetence frame. Frame an incident as incompetent rather than hatred, and the emotions might be pity rather than anger. Someone does something and you first think it's out of malice, but with this frame, you realize they are just incompetent. Mike ordered a German lager on our click list order. Instead of getting the beer he wanted, he got a strawberry banana beer. So instead of assuming the click list worker gave him the wrong beer out of malice, he could choose to assume that the click list worker is incompetent. The game frame is where you think about your setback just as part of a game. After you perform the workaround for a setback, the second challenge is preventing ourselves from experiencing negative emotions in the aftermath of that setback. The second but more significant factor in grading your performance will be your emotional response to the setback. If you remain calm and collected, you are worthy of, say, a B. If your goal is to get an A or even an A+ on the exam, you will have to do more than remain calm. You will have to welcome the setback and even be happy that it appeared in the first place. Getting angry in response to a setback will shatter whatever peace you were formerly experiencing. It will also cloud your thinking, making it difficult for your conscious mind to develop possible workarounds. Stoic philosophers would make a point of visualizing ways in which their lives could be worse. Almost regardless of how bad the circumstances are, they could be worse, and this alone is reason to give thanks. Consider the possibility of losing something important to you or something going badly. The focus here isn't on thinking about how bad it would be, it is to prepare yourself to handle it well and to dull the blow if it ever does come. This also helps lessen attachments to externals and makes you more grateful for them while you do have them, knowing that one day you might not. We will now practice a negative visualization together. Close your eyes, keep them closed. Now imagine you are blind. Imagine that you live in a world of darkness in which you would never see your child's face or drive a car again. Now open your eyes. You can appreciate your eyesight after that negative visualization. Toughness training is when you go out of your way to make your circumstances take a turn for the worse so you can expand your comfort zone. Your comfort zone has 2 dimensions, one physical and the other emotional, and your goal in toughness training should be to expand both of them. You can do this by going out of your way to expose yourself in measured doses to the things you fear. If, for example, you have a fear of public speaking, part of your toughness training can be to seek out speaking events like this one. The whole idea is to expand your comfort zone so you feel comfortable in a wider range of circumstances. The more you practice discomfort intentionally, the less unplanned discomfort will throw off your life. The Stoics wanted to conquer their fear of death. They wanted to see it as a natural event that we will all face at one point or another in our lives. Rather than living in fear of it, they encouraged us to use death as motivation. When we keep death on our minds, we can focus on what truly matters and work to master both our beliefs and our emotions. Pause in your daily routine to reflect that no matter what you are doing, there's a chance that this is the last time you will ever do it. For those of us with bigger kids, one day in the past was the last time you held their hand across the street. You can meditate on death to remind yourself regularly that you are going to die. Seriously, think about that. Remember that it can happen without warning at any time. Prepare for it. Consider who you want to be when you die. And then realize that if you want to guarantee that, you have to be that person right now, because you might be dead in 5 minutes. If you died right now, would you be content? One side effect of studying for Stoic tests is that your self-confidence will rise. The more challenges you successfully meet, the more confident you will become in your ability to meet them. By voluntarily dealing with setbacks, you can also improve your ability to spot the silver linings in the gray clouds of daily life and appreciate just how relatively setback-free your life is. Once you start thinking of setbacks as Stoic tests, you may discover that instead of dreading them, you look forward to them. Besides giving you a chance to develop your skill in dealing with them, setbacks give you an opportunity to display the skill you have thus far developed. Much like a lacrosse player can take pride in her playing ability, you can take pride in your ability when set back to find a good workaround without becoming angry, anxious, or despondent. It is a wonderful skill to possess, and one that relatively few people do possess. Start undertaking Stoic adventures, and you might notice a change in yourself. Formerly, when you encountered a setback, you would have responded with feelings of frustration or anger. Now you might experience a little burst of delight. A setback I want to work on. And if you successfully pass the Stoic test in question, you might experience a deep sense of satisfaction. Once I finished the book and was researching information for this sermon, I realized William Irvine is a professor at Wright State University. If you would like additional information on the Stoic challenge, he has appeared in these podcasts. I have two friends that have recently started a podcast. In this podcast, they refer to me as Yoda on several different occasions. While I was researching this sermon, I realized the Jedi philosophy is very Stoic in nature. Specifically, Yoda, the Jedi Master, is a sage, a wise person. He says that fear leads to anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. The Jedi, like the Stoics, believe that self-mastery and self-improvement lead to virtue and happiness.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Harmony UU podcast. Check us out online at harmonyuu.org for more details. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search Harmony UU. If you're in the Cincinnati area, please stop by one of our services on the first and third Sunday of each month at 10 a.m.